Men have been helping men for years, so let's help each other get ahead. You should respect me first and like me second. And of course, I want you to like me. If you choose a path, it's probably the right path. And if it's not the right path, you're in the best position to fix it and course correct. Often, people remember the only woman in the room. So I try to use that to my advantage. They're going to walk away and say, who was that lady from that company that we talked to? My father and the family that we have and where he came from, he really wanted to raise us to live a life that was better than one that he had, than his parents had. And I'm so fortunate that he instilled that work ethic in me. He always worked really hard, and I saw that. He always put family first, and I saw that. And he made sure that if we wanted beyond like our basic needs, he could provide for that, but he wanted to teach us that it was important to go out and achieve those things on our own. I come from a really small town, like a resort town outside of New York. And I always knew there was, because I was so close to a major city, there was like this great wide world out there, and I wanted to explore it. And if you have financial independence, you have the means and capabilities to see the world and meet people and create experiences for yourself, and understand that if you work hard for something, you can get rewarded, and you can use that to then achieve your priorities. So I got my first job when I was 12 or 14 or something, working in a farm stand, making Christmas wreaths. And it was really hard work. It was like a lot of little baubles on Christmas wreaths, but that was pocket money, and that like allowed me to just have fun and do the things that I wanted to do as a kid. And when I was in university, that carried through. I knew that one, I needed to work to, get through the costs associated with going to a private university. But I also knew that the harder I worked and the more experiences that I accumulated, the more like of a competitive candidate I would be for any future opportunity. And I was establishing a baseline for myself of skills and learning the things that I was good at and that I wasn't good at, and what I liked and what I didn't like. And I'm grateful that I had to work so hard in those early years, because I felt like I left university much farther along in that journey. And going into my first job out of university, I was a little bit more oriented around what I wanted to get out of my career, because I'd done so many miscellaneous jobs and internships and professional experiences, but also just jobs in the past. So it started with language. I had a little crush on a boy in like the second grade and wanted to impress him, so I learned how to say "I love you, PJ" in French, which got me nowhere in that in that domain. But I love the idea of learning language and using communication as a tool to broaden my horizons and connect with people. I've always been hyper communicative and really extroverted, and to know that there was like a global population outside of my immediate community, and in order to interact with them, I would need to really level set and be able to communicate with them. I started learning French when I was really young, and that carried with me. That opened up the fact that there is a France, and you can travel and you can work abroad. And I remember doing, at a very young age, a congressional leadership conference in, not very, like 15 or so, in Washington, D.C. And that was the first time that I had spent an immersive amount of time in a major city, surrounded by people from all over the country and even all over the globe, learning about international relations and politics and diplomacy. And it's something that I really craved. I picked my university experience so I could study abroad, so I could learn a new language. I've always really been interested in the world as a tool for learning about other people, learning about myself, and just continuing to be educated on what is outside of my natural domain. Again, I had a good sense of what I liked and what I wanted to learn in my career. I'd pivoted away from a legal and policy track really early on after leaving university, because I knew I loved communicating with people. I was doing a lot of translation in my old business. I loved being client facing. I thought that was really cool, but I knew I didn't want to be a lawyer, nor could I really afford it back in the States. So I was looking for a job that was oriented towards my skill set. And Alpha Sites came along at the perfect time. I used to call my parents and say, I can't believe the more people I speak to every day, the more money I make. So my personal values were really well aligned to what you could learn in customer service, client service, sales oriented role. And over time, the more I learned what I was uniquely good at and the things that I was better at, even than those around me, leaning into that. I think when you're in a position of growth, you focus on the things that you're not good at to level up to the things that you need to be good at in a job in your career. And once you kind of establish that new baseline, it's very easy to stay there. And I had a great manager at the time who's a very dear friend of mine now. And he would always point out the things that I was super good at. And that just felt like they were coming naturally to me, and said, you have to focus on your strengths just as much as you have to focus on your opportunity areas, because in the tools in your toolbox, those are your sharpest assets, and you have to hone them every single day. And he gave me a lot of coaching on how to communicate in a way that was intentional, how to lean into some of the coaching skills that I loved. And I think that emboldened me to just go outside my comfort zone and try new things. And a lot of opportunities that came to me at Alpha Sites is because we were able to orient myself into positions that really heightened those, where I was able to lead teams and coach young graduates and build strategies around client service, because I love helping my clients and I love working through chaos and bringing order and organization, because I'm a very organized person. So yeah, I think that lesson for me was really key. And staying visible, I mean, a lot of that comes down to also generating really good results for a business. At the end of the day, you're hired to achieve a certain goal or a certain set of goals. And if you stay focused on that, opportunities are presented to you. I'm a big believer you put your best people on your biggest opportunities. So I've always been really focused on being the best person so that I can be considered for those opportunities. So I would say results first, strengths second, I guess, even though they're obviously super interconnected. Yeah, focusing on that achieving so that I could unlock the next step or the next path, which is consistent to how I always approached my career, even from an early age. Achieve something, build a track record, be somebody worth investing in, and then, when you're in those opportunities, give it all you got, I guess. When I moved to Europe, when I moved to London, it was a very intense time. It was 2020, so it was the peak of the pandemic. It also was a very pivotal year for London in the context of Europe. And I was managing a lot of very junior early career professionals who were embarking on their career and wanting to move to London, and doing that in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of figuring out how to train people virtually, figuring out how to get people into the country. It was chaos. And I kind of love chaos, I think, because it's very clear what you need to do. It's just the how that's often really confusing. And I think what I learned through that time is there's always going to be moments of uncertainty, because, when you're in any situation, but especially in business, there's no right answer. There's no silver bullet. If it was easy, you would have thought of it already. And I think there were three things that really helped me in the beginning and then throughout the remaining 4 years there. It's one, when things are uncertain, build certainty where you can. So I can't tell you when the borders will open up and you can come back to London. I can't tell you when the pandemic is going to be over and we can go back into the office. But I can build consistency around when you can hear from me, when you'll hear from the business, when you'll be updated. And I'll try to build a consistent rhythm throughout the chaos to keep you on track, which, especially coming from a client service background, is a lot of what you learn, right? You can expect to hear from me. I might not know the answer, but at least you'll know what's going on. The second was leaning into my expertise. Again, when you're stuck in these leadership moments, it's often really easy to go, I don't know what I'm doing, or look to those around you. And definitely, I've always encouraged myself and others to seek advice from those who have different perspectives, but just remembering I'm in this role for a reason. I'm the only person on the planet who's thinking about this one problem as my top priority. I'm the only person on the planet who, at the time, understood the business at the levels that I did, understood the people that I was managing, understood the context of what was going on. And so even if I don't know if my solution is the right one, I'm the best placed to come up with what the outcome can be or should be, and feeling really, really confident in that. And I think the last thing is like there is no perfect path. There's no perfect solution. Early in my career, I was managing a lot of client projects, and you're always seeking for the perfect one, the one that goes as smoothly as possible. The client brief comes in and it's exactly what you need, and you have all the information and you action on everything perfectly, and they get exactly what they're asking for within like 24 hours. And it's good to have that as a metaphor, to have that ideal state in your mind of how you want things to go, but just expect that they're not going to go that way. And believe that you and your team have the capacity to figure it out and find a path forward. But the problem just is the problem, and it's our job to deal with it. And the moment that I got over that mental like expectation for myself that this is supposed to go smoothly, things got a lot easier, because it's not going to go smoothly. So I just need to be the one who's managing it the best I can and leaning into my own strengths and expertise in order to do that, and relying on the people around me. I've always scored really highly on positivity in my Gallup Strengths Finder. Every time I take it for the last, I would say 10 years, it comes up on top. And I'm really glad I know that, because it allows me to be aware of that. And I love surrounding myself with people who are natural skeptics or maybe a little critical, to keep me in balance and keep me in check. It was a great manager I worked with. She's a supernatural skeptic. And it was wonderful to have these really balanced conversations where I just, with boundless optimism, would say, we're going to find a way. And then she would be practical and realistic. And I think it's important to know your strengths so that you know what to lean into, as we discussed, but especially who to put on your team to make sure that you are checking those the best you can. But coming back to what I said before, I don't think anything is easy or is supposed to be easy. So why stress about it? I think accepting the fact that things are going to go the way that they're going to go, and you can only control what you can control. There was a quote, I think it was from Bob Iger's book, and he said, the best leaders don't run around and say, the sky is falling when things are really going awry. They also don't run around and say, everything is fine if the sky is falling. They acknowledge the fact that the sky is falling, and then pour all of their positivity and optimism into the team and the people around them. The sky is falling, but I believe that we as a team have the capacity and capabilities to figure this out and make it better. So a lot of it comes down to that belief in yourself that you can do it. And if you choose a path, it's probably the right path. And if it's not the right path, you're in the best position to fix it and course correct, but also making sure that you have a really strong team and that you believe in them to help you along the way. The management experiences that I had have been really interesting, because in my last role, I would say the average age of the person that I was managing was probably early to mid 20s. And now I'm managing and working with professionals who are 30 plus years into their career. And two things, I come back to expertise. I think it's such an important way to wield power. This is not a me concept, but the idea of expert power, of I'm in the room for a reason. I come with a certain degree of expertise. You have different expertise, and I need that. So let's understand what you're really good at, what you know, who you know, and how we can really come to the table with our two strengths and expertises aligned. So in my current role, I have the opportunity to help grow and scale a newish business, but the business in the past had been moving at a different pace. So it's always about remembering why I'm here, what I'm bringing to the table, how that perspective is different than the people who I'm working with, who have boundless experience in other aspects of running this business in our industry. And as long as we can marry those together, we're going to be doing great work. And it is definitely about being respected first and liked second, which was a really hard lesson for me to learn early on in my career, because I like being liked. Like I said, I'm super extroverted, and I built my career in client service and customer relations and sales, where a lot of management, where a lot of how you get things done is through your relationships with people. But you should respect me first and like me second. And of course, I want you to like me. If you don't, I guess it's fine as long as you respect me at the end of the day. So it's about building respect. I respect the things that you know. I respect what you can bring to the table. I respect that I bring a different perspective. And yeah, hopefully through enough interactions, and me doing the things that I say I can do, I can earn that respect. And then I can, earn their like in time. Well, there's this concept I love. It's all about flipping the narrative. Generally, when there's conflict, it's X versus Y. It's me versus you. It's me versus the client, or me versus my partner, or whomever it might be. If you can change your perspective to say, actually, it's X plus Y versus Z. It's me and you against the timeline. It's me and you against the competition. It's me and you against the fact that you needed something and it doesn't exist. So how do we work through this? The Z is the enemy. The Z is the thing that together we need to be on the same side of this equation and working towards solving for. And if you can flip the problem, you can flip the perspective of the people that you're working with to see it that way. I'm not the problem. I'm here to help you find a solution. This is the problem. I'll give you some solutions. What do you think works for you? There was coming back to like moving to Europe. I said before, I'm really organized. And there were a couple of really big challenges that we needed to face as a team. And I just felt like every path forward was riddled with obstacles. We had a set of problems that we needed to solve for, or objectives that I needed to achieve. And I made like this exhaustive list of all the different ways that I could approach it. And the ones that hit my value proposition best were the hardest, or the most difficult, or didn't work in the past, or were the most expensive. And I think that thought process to me of, okay, well, what is the problem? And let me lay out all of the ways in which I can approach this. Let me weigh those against what I'm trying to achieve. And if I can accept that most likely there's not any low-hanging fruit, because that's not the way this works, unless there is, which is great. But if I can accept there's no low-hanging fruit and whatever I need to do is probably going to be difficult and expensive, and there's a reason why we haven't done it before, I can mentally get behind the fact that this is still the right path forward because I've weighted against all the options and I need to just accept those costs or accept those risks. So yeah, I think being super logical, identify what that problem is, get people on your side, and then just lay out what options you have and know that the hardest way forward is probably going to be the right way forward. And you just have to make that verbal commitment to yourself and with whomever you're working this out with. Opportunities, I'll start with opportunities because currently I'm in automotive and I'm in tech. And in both of those industries, men generally dominate the boardroom and generally dominate any room that I find myself in. And I had met a woman in the industry early on who said to me, she's on my team today, she's excellent. She said, you're the only woman often. People remember the only woman in the room. You're generally going to stand out. And so I try to use that to my advantage, is what she said. And I really hung on to that. I really try to make an impression, at least one impression in every meeting that I'm in, because I have the chance to do it. They're going to walk away and say, who was that lady from that company that we talked to? And if I'm going to stick out, I want to stick out in the best way that I can. I do think in general, just a different approach that women need to bring to the workplace, bring to the boardroom. There's a different style, there's a different way of getting things done, and not emulating the way that the boys are doing it is important. I worked really early on in my career with a woman who was like super bullish and was really effective at wielding that style of like leveling up with the guys and being super, super strong in a really almost aggressive way. And for her, that worked. And I respect that so much. I've tried that for myself, and that's just not my style. So I think understanding how do I wield softer power that is just as firm, but more aligned with who I am as a person, which is warm, which is positive, leaning into those strengths. I have to remember that more when I'm the only woman in the room because it's easy to click into the styles of those around you. And I think that's probably more of what I'm working through now versus in the past where I was probably more balanced environments. So I joined Chief, which is a women's networking group, because I had moved to London and I didn't have a network really aside from the people that I worked with. And it was really important for me to build a community and have an outlet and be connected to other women in the same professional headspace. So I think with Chief, I can't recommend it enough. The power of women helping women and having a community of women who are almost on speed dial to ask your questions to validate the things that you're thinking, to challenge the things that you are unsure about. We didn't talk about this before, but I'm a big believer of like, if you think about yourself, I don't think about myself this way, but if you think yourself like a celebrity has a glam squad. They have somebody who's like really good at doing their makeup and really good at doing their hair, and you have your fitness instructor, and you have, your doula, like all the people who surround you who make you your best self. When I was a VP at Alpha Sites, I think that's when I started to really lean into my strengths-based coaching. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm only going to get myself so far. So I kind of need to build my Dom squad. Like, who are the people around me who will help balance me out, who will bring different strengths to the table, who will accentuate the things that I'm good at, but also help me fill the gaps in the areas where I'm not as strong or I'm still learning. And coming to London and having a smaller community in that regard was challenging at first. And Chief was amazing at helping me build a circle of women who could help me balance in that way, and to have, like I said, a community where if you were struggling with something or you needed help or you were looking for a connection, it's all about, men have been helping men for years, so let's help each other get ahead. And I loved that. And it came into my life at a point where I was making a career pivot and I was looking to branch out, and I was navigating my first job search in 12 years. And the women that I met through that community, I couldn't have made the decisions I made without the conversations I had through Chief. And Pavilion fills a very different gap. It's much more focused on learning. And when you're sitting in a C-level title, you are generally the only person in the room who's focusing on the one lens that you need to have on that business. And it goes back to, I'm the only person in the world who's thinking about this set of problems in this business, in this industry from this lens. And that can be really lonely. Leadership is a lonely lunch. So Pavilion has been awesome to have access to learnings, peer-led resources, libraries of content, templates, things that get me started. Their CRO school right now, which is amazing because you get a little snippet of all of the basics that cover the functions that you lead. They have so many rich resources to help me think about things like building incentive systems and all the things that I need to do every single day. I can definitely lean on my team to vet those and validate those and brainstorm, but they're still going to look at it from a different lens. So it just gives me exposure to people who are thinking about the same problems I'm thinking about. And I can bat that around and build confidence around those ideas with people who are like-minded in what they prioritize before I then go bring that to the boardroom and get those ideas ripped apart by people who bring a different perspective to the business. And that just helps me feel really confident that what I'm putting forward to start before we turn it into what we need in our business is strong. I've been so fortunate to work with my coach, Emily, for years. We started working together in 2017. I was leading a team at the time, it was about 13 people, and she worked with me as I scaled that team up to 30. And then we reconnected when I was back in London, and she really helped me figure out how to position myself in a much more executive level role. I come back to strengths again. Emily is super exhaustive in her approach. She spends a lot of time speaking to the people around you and helping you understand what are your strengths and what are you good at, but also what are your blind spots? What are the things that you don't realize might hold you back or others may think of you? And in business, perception is reality. You need to be aware of those perceptions and then choose whether you will or how to adapt. And so she was really illuminating and helping me understand what could be my authentic self. And she was really illustrative. I remember we used to watch videos of other female leaders and then digest, what did you like? Does that work for you? Could you speak like Angela Merkel, or do you need a different style? And it was really fun to just try on different types of leadership personalities and figure out which ones felt the most comfortable for me. And then when I moved to Europe, taking on a much more senior, much more visible role. The team that I led, we were 500 people. And it was one of those, I was the mouthpiece to that business around a lot of changes that were happening between the years of 2020 and 2024. And feeling really confident, bringing that voice into the room and knowing how to navigate, again, an executive team that was really male heavy. She was able to help me figure out that soft but firm style. And I'm definitely still honing that. Nobody is a finished product, but she got me really, really far along, reflecting on what am I doing? Is it working? How do I approach this conversation? Mock conversations with her to like prep for some of the more difficult conversations I had. She just gave me space to try different styles. And then when I was in the moment, I knew, what tools to click into a little bit more than I would have otherwise. The business that I was in previously, it was very much an up or out model. The best people get promoted through the business. And then there's these little break points that we would create after a certain amount of time. You reflect internally, you discuss with the business, does it make sense for me to carry on for my career, for what you need? And that type of like professional services model does kind of create for you a like, if I work hard, I'll unlock the next level. If I achieve, I'll get promoted and I'll get the next thing. So I was definitely often working for the validation of, I want to get the promotion or I want to be elevated into the next challenge. And that served me because I was. And then the moment that it didn't serve me anymore and we had the honest conversation around where I wanted to take my career next, it was almost this, well, I don't have to work for the promotion. I can just do work the best way that I know how. And especially after 12 years in a business, I had a ton of expertise. I had a ton of really good ideas that I was sitting on. I had things that I wanted to do. And there was an individual that I worked with. He was so bold. And he was definitely a do it and apologize later versus ask for permission. And I probably wasn't that way. And in that last year, I felt really emboldened by his style. And I would ask myself, what would he do? Would he ask to do this if he felt like it was the right thing after spending 15 years in a business and owning a really large part of that? Or would you do the thing that was right for you as long as you're not disrupting the core foundation or doing anything too risky? If it's right and you believe it's right, again, I'm the only person on the planet responsible for these people in this region with these challenges. So for the most part, if I think that this is a good idea, I want to do it. And yeah, I would call it my Obama year because Obama's last year in office, he, approved healthcare and legalized gay marriage and did all of the things that he wanted to leave behind. And I asked myself at the beginning of the year, what do I want to leave behind? What are the things that I want to achieve in this year? And if that's on the list and I feel the path forward is compliant and isn't going to disrupt the business in a radical way, but I felt like it was right for my people or for the pockets of the business that I was overseeing at the time, then I should do it. And I found I was more effective at getting things done because I was asking the right people for that approval, but I wasn't like shopping my ideas around or pandering or delaying. I had such clarity around what I wanted to do. So yeah, I wish I had learned that sooner, but if I didn't have that year, I wouldn't feel in the role that I'm in now, where again, you are the only person looking after the revenue stream from the lens of the CRO. You need that internal compass to say, well, I think this is a really good idea. And I vetted it in a way that I feel is appropriate. And I know the challenges and I know the risks, but I believe that this is the right path forward. So that decision-making muscle was really refined in those last 12 months. No, not anymore. Je t'aime, PJ.